Hello everyone, welcome to the final keynote of 2013. My name is Keith Kochner. I'm the founder and creator of MentorFish.com, and I just want to welcome you to this wonderful training event tonight. I'm very excited about it. This is actually one of the only annual keynotes that I do every year for sure because it's so important. It's probably one of the most important principles that I learned early on in my career to be able to do. And it has made all the difference both in my personal life and my business life, and it's called clearing and cutting. Clearing and cutting. And some of you that are already members of MentorFish may be saying, yes, Keith, I've heard this one. I heard it last year, I heard it the year before, and I can't wait to hear it again tonight because it is such a vital tool to use this time of year. If you're a guest tonight, because this is a free event, this is a guest event if you like, that you could come and test and see what we're really all about here at MentorFish. If you're a guest of a member, or you found us somehow, enjoy this training tonight because it's going to be something that you will be able to use to make sure you're going into your new year in a healthy, grounded, foundational way that you can live out your new year the way that you maybe have in your mind. You know, a lot of times this time of year we think about, man, maybe the year didn't look like we wanted it to. Next year could be different. It really can be. And I'm going to get to that training in just a moment. But before I do, I have a couple quick announcements. We have a lot of stuff going on this time of year, especially coming around in January. So let me just give you, if you're not a member, just hold on with me for a second, or maybe you'll like some of these enough to become a member. But if you are a member, listen to these very quickly. We have our annual teen event coming up in 2014. We're not quite yet, but we are almost sold out. So if you have a teenager from the age of 14 to 17, or very close, maybe 13 or 18, we make a few exceptions. If you have a teenager, call me or email me. Here in the MentorFish community, you can send me a private message, you can chat me, you can email me, or you can call me on my cell number, 918-605-2640. That is my personal cell number, and I will visit with you about it. I handle all the teen stuff personally. It's a powerful, powerful week. Come up in the summer of 2014. We have a few spots left, so if you're thinking about it or you're considering it, don't wait any longer. Get a hold of me. In January, we have a lot of things starting off in January. We have our boot camps. We have our new boot camps kicking off in January. We have a new greatness boot camp launching, and we have a new financial greatness boot camp launching in January. January, we have our PACE challenge that kicks off at the beginning of the year. So you don't want to miss our first quarter challenge, our PACE challenge. And finally, we have our first two-day exchange event of 2014. And that will be on January 23rd and 24th here at our beautiful Tulsa Greatness Center. And we would love to invite you out. That's always one of our most popular events because it's the beginning of the year. Use the opportunity. Get here. It's part of your membership. It doesn't cost you anything to participate. This is the same event for years that I charged $1,000 a person. Now it's part of your membership benefit. So make plans now. Save the date. Get here for our first event of 2014. I can promise you, if you want your 2014 to look different, it's a must. It's an event that will absolutely give you the leverage to create a different year than possibly any other year you've ever had before in your life. That's how passionate I'm about the event. So be there or be square. So I told you the announcement wouldn't take long, so that are my announcements. Those are my announcements for tonight. Now we're going to jump into this training. If you're sitting down somewhere, please grab a pencil or a pen and some paper, something to write with, because you will not want to miss these principles. They're very, very important, and you'll understand why in just a moment. Let's join me teaching clearing and cutting right now. Oh man, can you believe we're at the end of another great year? I'm so excited about it. I love December. I love this training. I think this training is very, very valuable. It's kind of time sensitive and it's kind of not, and I'll explain what that means here later on as we begin to teach this keynote. But I do want to tell you this. This is something that I have taught every December for the last 5 years at least. It may be closer to 6 or 7, but I know 5 for absolutely certain. This is a wonderful, wonderful training. It's going to help you close out this season and prepare you for the next season. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful deal. If you're listening right now, I want to kind of get your attention because this is a very, very powerful training. And it was taught to me. I added to this training. But the concepts and one of the key stories I'm going to use in this training to help you see and for me to demonstrate to you what exactly it is I'm talking about was taught to me several years ago, right as I started doing this every December in my life, by one of my mentors. Now, many of you have heard me say over the years, I love mentorship, MentorFish.com and Mentorship Mastery. Mentorship's not just a clever name for a company. It's actually a way of life, and it's a way of life that I've dedicated myself to from the age of 18 all the way to where I'm at today, and I've had as many as 5 mentors in my life at one time, all the way to 1 mentor in my life at a time. But this particular training, this particular story that actually helped me develop this training came to me, was taught to me by one of my mentors. One of the most important things that I learned how to do many years ago was in December, or at the end of a season in my life, which we'll talk about what that means here in a little bit, is to clear and cut before I go into the next season. And so how this whole thing came about, let me give you a little bit of background knowledge here. I was visiting with this particular mentor, and I was asking him a bunch of questions. I said, you know what, how do you try so many things? Because so many things had not worked out for him. You're going to learn that about very successful people. Successful people have a lot of failure stories because they find success in the midst of failure, because to successful people, failure doesn't mean anything negative. It just simply means something turned out different than you thought it was going to do, or you thought it was going to look. So especially this time of year, towards the end of the year, I love teaching this in December. Some of you may be thinking right now, hey Keith, my year turned out different than I thought it was going to. What I've been working on didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to, didn't look how I thought I needed to look, and you may be defining it as failure. Well, number one, successful people define failure differently. I love failure. Failure for me is just something turning out different than I thought. I learn from it and I continue to move forward. And that's easier said than done. So that was kind of the conversation I was having with this particular mentor. I was asking him, I said, you know what, how do you do so many great things even in the midst of failures? And he began to explain to me what I'm going to explain to you in just a few moments, and then I titled Clearing and Cutting. So basically what he was explaining to me was he was an expert, he was an absolute expert at clearing and cutting. Now I think this is a wonderful message for the end of the year. That's why I teach it at the end of every year. I've done it for the last 5 years. But what he was really explaining to me, he said, Keith, you know what? You can use this technique, you can use this training really at any season of transition in your life, or any transition from one season to the next in your life. And he was describing to me in his mind, every time he tried something and it didn't work out exactly how he thought it was going to, he would transition into something else, something new, and he would clear and cut prior to going on to the next project, or prior to going on to the next idea. In our world, we're talking about prior to going into the next year, or maybe into the next season of your life, or the next week, day, or month. See, a season of your life can be any length of time, but when you know you're in a season of transition, this is a very powerful technique to do. You want to clear and cut. So I know, as I just said, you can use it anytime, but I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, that people often have something mentally around switching to a new year. So it's like, okay, you know, this year was great. Now it's going to be this year. We come up with our New Year's resolutions, and we get with all this excitement, we get all this motivation, we get all this hype in our lives because it's a new year. and I understand that, but did you know this? Every day of your life is the first day of a new year if you chose to see it that way. Did you know that? I actually have more significance in my life anchored to July 1st than I do January 1st. It's just the structure of things of how they've played out in my life, and I realized, hey, you know what? I can start a new year any time of the year, and I use July 1st as a very strong positioning for a new year, and I use December as well. So let's walk this out. I really want to show you how to clear and cut, because right now you're probably thinking, you know what, it's December, I'm going into the next year, and I want to do something maybe different next year. I want to do something maybe more next year. I want to do something maybe better next year. And what often happens in transition that I've noticed, which is why I was asking my mentor this, is people transition into a new season, but yet they bring everything with them from the prior season right into the new season. But yet they want things in the new season to be different than the old season, but yet why would they? Because nothing took place differently, just a calendar day flipped over, or a moment on a clock ticked past, or some type of event ended and a new one was beginning, but yet we didn't do anything specifically to clear and cut some things and then move forward. And what I'm going to suggest to you, if you just transition into the new year and you do nothing different, you're going to bring this year right into your new year. And that's not a positive or negative. I just want to make sure you're clear on what it is you're bringing with you and what it is you don't want to bring with you. Okay, so this is a two-step process, clearing and cutting. And I normally, up until actually this year, the last 4 years, I have taken off the entire month of December. And when I say take off the entire month of December, I don't mean I stay at home and I don't do anything. I actually mean I don't travel. So this year I do have a couple quick events here at the beginning of the month, but prior to this year, I take off the entire month of December. And once these two events go by, I'm going to take off about 3.5 weeks to do the exact same thing I've always done. I just went ahead and booked a couple extra meetings in the first week and a half of December because we took some of our extra time at our lake home this summer. And so I used this week and a half to make up for that. But I'm going to do the same concept. I do this every single December. I spend time clearing and cutting. I spend some time with myself. I collect my thoughts. There's been Decembers where I even will take a small trip, even all by myself, just to get my mind wrapped around what's going on, what took place this year. Man, what worked, what didn't work? What were the events? And I really role play the entire year, January through December, out in my mind that I'm just beginning to exit. And so I can clear off everything I want to clear off for that year and position myself to go into the new year. But see, here's why I call it. Here's why I call it clearing. I'd much rather have you go into the new year clear than confused. Does that make sense? So many people go into new seasons of their life confused rather than clear. So I like to clear and cut. And so here's the technique. So what you're going to want to do is this. You're going to want to do something similar to what I just described to you. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to take off the entire month of December or anything of that kind. I just take off from traveling so I can be around here more, around our offices more, around my family more. And then normally I take some time to myself. So I'm going to really ask you to do this sometime in the month of December, is take some time to yourself, however you define that. Maybe it's an afternoon, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a weekend, and maybe you do it with your spouse as well, because Michelle and I do part of this together as well. But I also take some time for myself because based on my creativity, my writing, the company, and the content I create, I like to kind of get by myself sometimes too and really dive into what was working this year and what didn't work. Where did I end up based on where I thought I would end up this year, my goals and my vision. Where am I at in my greatness? Am I walking in it, or am I diluting it, or am I walking away from it? You know, I like to take inventory. So I think it's a great idea for you to take inventory. So what I do is this. I go back and I look over the entire year, month by month, and I have a notebook in front of me, and I begin to write things down. I make two lists. I make a list of things that didn't work, and I do that first, and then I make a list of things that did work. And I've noticed this. When I first started doing this technique many, many years ago, I noticed, man, it's really easy for me, it'd probably be really easy for you as well, to remember a whole bunch of things that maybe didn't work. So that list, I always fill up I fill up very, very fast, and it's a very long list, and I can go on and on. Well, that didn't work, this didn't work, and I go month by month. And I apply it really to all 5 areas of true abundance. So I want you to think about that as well. I kind of do this concept with all 5 areas of true abundance. Remember, true abundance has 5 elements in it. Our faith, our foundation, our finances, our relationships, and our health. And so I go through every one of those categories every month, and I just make notes. What didn't work? What didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to? Where did I drop the ball? Where did things just turn out differently than I thought? Maybe, and it wasn't necessarily even a negative. They just looked different than I thought, and it wasn't what I wanted to create, so I'd qualify it as that it didn't work. And then once I'd done that, I would take another piece of paper, some other writing, and I would say, you know, what did work? And I'd go do the same thing. What did work in February in my faith? What did work February in my finances? And you don't have to necessarily take it month by month, but I've evolved into this because it's so valuable to me. I'm going to tell you, I could teach a lot of things to you right now, but I believe this is the most valuable thing I could teach you to use at the end of every year of your life. I actually had some people this week say, Keith, isn't it clearing and cutting time? And I said, absolutely. They've known me for several years. They know every December that's exactly what I do. So I want to get clear. I want to get clear on what didn't work and what did work for my year. Maybe you just look at the kind of the whole year. Maybe you don't go month by month. But you have some type of picture and what worked and what didn't work. Okay? Now, what you're going to notice is what I mentioned a moment ago. You're probably going to have a lot bigger list of things that didn't work than things that did work. Maybe you'll call it failures and successes. Well, Keith, here's all the failures. Here's what went wrong this year. You know, here's what went wrong in my family. Here's what went wrong in my finances. You know, here's what went wrong in my job. Here's what went wrong in my business. All those types of things. And then when it comes to successes, you're going to say, you know what, man, I don't know if I really did accomplish any success this year. Or, you know, what would it be? And it's going to be much more difficult for you to think of those things. Have you ever noticed that? Well, here's why. And this is why it's so important to get clear, because how excited would you be about the new year if you had this huge list of things that didn't work or things that you would call failures versus this little bitty list called successes that you have or things that did work? How motivated would you be to go into the new season of your life and really create something different for yourself? Probably not that motivated. So something needs to happen. There's a reason why those two things happen. It's not really true. I believe you've been way more successful this year than you're giving yourself credit for. And I believe the things that you think didn't work or that were failures probably aren't as big as you've made them out to be. Does that make sense? But those come to our mind quicker. The things that didn't work come to our mind quicker. Have you ever noticed that? Things that are negative come to our mind quicker than things that are positive. Failures pop up first, then successes. Watch this. If you ever ask somebody, hey, how's your week going? They're going to list the things that haven't worked most likely first before the things that have worked. If you ask somebody, hey, man, Keith, how'd your year go this year? If I was ungoverned and untrained, I used to say, well, man, it was a pretty good year, but here's all the things that didn't work. People always default there first, and here's why. And this is the story that my billionaire mentor shared with me to help me understand why that takes place. And he's showed me how to do something different. I'm going to show you how to do something different so you can truly get clear on what it is that has taken place this year for you in your life, all right? And what he said was this. You know, the events in our life are registered into our subconscious. Every time there's an event, it's registered into our subconscious, okay? And then when we want to go out and do new things, it's our subconscious's job to go and find the proof of if we think we can do it or not. And what's really interesting is our subconscious always remembers the negative things first. And so if we want to go do something different, our subconscious is going to go, well, Keith, you can't go do that because don't you remember this happened, that failed, that didn't work, and that didn't turn out like you thought it was going to. So what makes you think you're going to go do this? Then I instantly talk myself out of the possibility and I settle for something less. And so this was the analogy he used. And so subconscious sometimes is a big word that people don't quite get. So he gave me a very easy analogy for me to understand because here's how our subconscious works. I really want you to hear this today because when you get this, you may be able to end and close out this year in a way you've never closed out any other year before in your life and truly position yourself for a higher level of greatness and true abundance this next year, okay? He said, Keith, picture your subconscious like a warehouse, okay? Picture your subconscious like a warehouse because subconscious is a big word. Everybody knows what a warehouse. When you say warehouse, you think of a warehouse. It's very easy to come up with a picture to think about what it looks like. So think of a warehouse, okay? This warehouse has a gatekeeper or a doorman or woman. It has somebody that works the door, okay? And you have this big, huge warehouse. In this warehouse, right next, inside of the front door, right next to the doorkeeper, there is a filing cabinet right here, okay? And then if you look into the warehouse, you're going to see a big pile of papers. You know, just folded up papers, wadded up papers, just a big pile. That's all that's in the warehouse. So there's this big warehouse. In the middle of the warehouse, you see this big pile of paper just kind of thrown in the middle of the warehouse. And then you see a filing cabinet right next to the front door. And then there's this doorkeeper. Here's how our subconscious works. When an event takes place in our life, it's like handing a piece of paper to the doorkeeper. And the doorkeeper of your warehouse has to decide whether it's going to go in the filing cabinet right here by the front door, or if he's going to throw that piece of paper into the middle of the warehouse. Okay? So the doorkeeper has to decide. It is going to either throw it into the middle of the warehouse, or he or she is going to put it right in the filing cabinet. Those are the events. That's how the events in our life are registered. See, the events that take place in our life are registered in our subconscious. They're either put right in front of our memory or off in the distance where it's not as easy to recall. Now you may say, Keith, well, what makes the difference? How does that doorkeeper decide which place he's going to put the piece of paper? If he's going to throw it into the pile or if he's going to put it in a filing cabinet? What makes the difference? Who tells him or how does he decide what goes where? And it's actually very easy. The doorkeeper actually doesn't have a choice. The doorkeeper is dictated by us which place to put the file. Okay? And here is how we dictate to him. Are you ready for this? What determines where the piece of paper goes, what determines where the event will be placed in your life, it is determined solely by the amount of emotion you attach to the event. Did you all hear that? The emotion, the level of emotion that you attach to the event will determine where that event or file is put. Is it going to be put into the filing cabinet or in the middle of the warehouse? Now I'm going to ask you, let's assume there was an event that took place that had a huge level of emotion attached to it. If it had a huge level of emotion, do you think it's going to go right here in the front or off in the distance? You're right, it's going to go right here in the front. So the higher the emotion that's attached to the event, the closer it's going to get to the door. So if you have something that takes place in your life that has a big amount of emotion attached to it, it's going to go right in the filing drawer, right on the top drawer, right in the front. If you have an event that you don't attach much emotion to, it's going to come to the doorkeeper and he's just going to go and throw it off into the middle of the warehouse. Okay. You may say, Keith, I got that, but what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Let me understand. Let me help you explain so you can understand. That's exactly what we're doing right now. We're clearing and cutting all the events that have taken place in this past year, but I want to make sure before you go into the new year that you have all your events filed in the proper place to make you most effective for doing what it is you want to do in this coming year or this coming season of your life. Does that make sense? And here's why it's so important. When a negative event takes place, when something doesn't look how you think it needs to look, or a quote-unquote failure takes place, or something bad or negative, what do we do in our lives? Do we attach a little bit of emotion to that, or a lot of emotion to that? You're right again. We attach a lot of emotion to it. When something doesn't turn out, I can remember times in my life where I used to do this years ago. Something didn't look how I thought it was going to look, or I made a mistake, or I failed, or something didn't happen the way I thought it was going to. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened to me. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Everybody's going to find out. Nobody's ever going to forget. This is going to ruin everything. This is horrible. That's how most people exaggerate things that don't turn out the way they think they're going to in their life. They make a huge deal. So when something negative happens, man, we attach all this emotion to it. We make a huge deal out of it. We tell ourselves everybody's going to find out, nobody's going to forget, and nothing's ever going to work out because of it. That's a lot of emotion to an event. So guess where that event is filed? You got it. The doorkeeper's going to get it, and he's going to put something like that right here in the top drawer, easily found, easily accessible, right here in the front, right next to the front door. Okay? Now what's interesting is, when bad things happen, we will blow them out of proportion. We'll go nuts. We'll attach all kinds of emotion to it. But when something good happens, or you do something great, you know how we react? You know what we do? I've done this before in my life too. I just knock it out of the park. Unbelievable, huge success, big win. You know what I tell myself? Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Nobody's going to find out about it. Nobody would even care. Nobody's going to remember this tomorrow. This isn't going to affect anything that big of a deal. You know, whatever, you know, no big deal. And we don't attach any emotion to the things we've done great. And so guess what? No emotion gets attached to that event. That event's handled to the gatekeeper or the file, the doorman, and guess where he puts that event? You're right, he throws it into the middle of the warehouse because there was no emotion attached to it. So my mentor was telling me this story, giving me this diagram in my life. He said, Keith, there's something else you got to understand. There's a reason why we don't attach the proper emotion to the things that we do great. And I thought, well, I asked him, of course, I said, well, why? He goes, think about it. When you grew up, however you want to define it, with society, tradition, religion, your family, whatever it was, your circumstances, when you did something great, what were you taught? I said, well, I don't know. Tell me what you mean. He said, you were taught, when you did something great, you were taught to be modest instead of honest. You were taught when you did something great, oh, it's no big deal, thank you, but it's no big deal, you know. We were taught to be modest instead of honest. So we wouldn't come across as prideful or arrogant or bragging. He said, Keith, being honest about a success is not being arrogant or bragging or boasting. When you're being arrogant, bragging, or boasting, that's when you say, hey, look at what I did because I'm so great and you're not because you're a loser and I'm so great. That's arrogance. That's ignorance. That's not what he was talking about. He said, Keith, but nobody acknowledges themselves for the great things they've done. They only blow the big things that haven't worked out of proportion. We were taught to be modest instead of honest. So Keith, you need to be honest about the things you've accomplished this year. And you need to attach emotion to the great things that you've done, because if you don't, those are going to get thrown into the pile, and all the negative stuff's going to be right here in the middle of your filing drawer. You don't want the negative stuff here. You want the negative stuff in the middle of the warehouse, and you want the successful stuff right here by the filing cabinet in the front drawer. That's how you want it filed. Make sure you have your events filed in the proper place before you try to go on to the next place of your life or the next season. And he said, this is why. Because in the new season of your life, obviously we're talking about, this next year going into it, in January, you're going to come up with all kinds of great ideas. You're going to go, you know what? I want to do this year. I'm going to take my finances here this year. I want my business to do this. I want my marriage to go here. I want my family to experience this. I want my health to look like this. You're going to come up with all these great ideas that you want to do. But it's the job of your subconscious and that gatekeeper to go and find the proof to warrant whether you think you'll be able to do it or not. And if you've got all the negative stuff right here, you know what your gatekeeper's going to say, your doorkeeper's going to say, Keith, you can't do that. Look, here's an example of where you failed. Here's an example of when you didn't do it. Here's another example of when it didn't happen. That's never going to happen for you, so you might as well just give up. And what do most people do? They settle without even knowing it. And they go right back to operating how they've always operated. Because, Keith, you don't want that stuff right there. You want that stuff in the middle of the warehouse. And you want your successes right here. So you need to go back and attach emotion to those successes. Get them right here. So when you want to do something new, that gatekeeper is going to work for you, not against you. He's going to say, you know what, Keith? Man, I'm looking right here in the front of this drawer. You know what? You probably could do that this year because look what you did this past year. That was amazing. That was awesome. You know what? Actually, there's not just one event, Mr. Kochner. There's actually two here. Man, do you remember back in July how great you were when you gave it your all at your teen experience camp and you got over yourself and you just connected with these kids? You probably could do these great things you want to do this next year. And remember in October, see what my gatekeeper is doing is he's finding all the things I did great to encourage me and prove to myself I can do more great things. I can do even bigger things. But what you want to ask yourself is this: is your gatekeeper working against you or for you? And part of clearing and cutting is making sure you go back in this month before you go into a new year, or at the end of this season before you go into a new season, and make sure you've got everything properly filed to serve you with the ability to move forward to the new levels that you want to accomplish in the next season of your life. So here's what you do. Those lists I told you about, you go back and you look at those lists. And I told you one list is going to be pretty big, the other list is going to be rather small, and we're going to help you shift that. But what I want you to do is I want you to go back and I want you to read the list of the things that you think didn't work. I want you to go over the list of the things that you thought were failures, those things that you attached all this emotion to, and I want you to reassociate your emotion to them. And I want you to go back and I want you to minimize in your mind the things that didn't work. You know what, Keith? That wasn't that big of a deal. I'm still breathing. It really wasn't that big of a deal. People did forget. It didn't affect everything. You can do something different. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then go to the next thing. You know what, Keith? You tried really hard there. You gave it your best. It's not that big of a deal that didn't turn out. No big deal. See, I want you to downplay the things that didn't work out versus downplaying the things that did work out. Because if you don't, you're going to have them filed in the wrong places. So I want you to go back. This is part of clearing. You want to get clear on the events. When I say clear, clear means like free from them. You want to get past them. And so you can have clarity going into your new year, not confusion about where you're at or what your capabilities are. So you're going to take that first list and you're going to reassociate low levels of emotion to all the things that did not work out for you. Okay? Now here's the really fun part. You're going to go back and you're going to think some more on that list. And you said, you know what, now that I think about it, there were more things than I thought that I did great. I want you to add to that list of things that did work, of successes, of things you were great at. I want you to add, you know what, I was a great father this year. Doesn't mean I can't improve next year, but I did some really great things for my kids this year. You know what, I took my wife out to dinner on a date night at least once every month. I got her flowers this year. I got her gifts. You know what, I did a lot of great writing this year. I did a lot of great teaching and speaking. I shared my faith with a lot of great people this year. I stepped into my boldness and my courageousness, you know. And then what you're going to do is you're going to extend that list. You're going to make it bigger because I'm going to suggest this is true for you. I promise this is true for you. You did way more great things. You did many more great things than you think you did in this past year or this past season. I can promise you that. Make that list. And here's what I want you to do. This is the fun part. Go back and don't be modest. Be honest with yourself and say, you know what? You're awesome. Way to go. You did great. Way to knock it out of the park. And way to be a great father. Way to be a great husband. Way to be a great person. Way to be such a great encourager. Way to be great at whatever it is that you did great this year. Way to figure that out. Way to serve that person in your community. Whatever it is you have on that list, attach some great emotion to those things and realize, man, you had a way better year than you thought you ever did. And how awesome is that? Attach the emotion. You know what that's going to do? It's going to give a little bit of extra work to the gatekeeper right before we go into the new year. He's going to have to shuffle. He's going to have to take all these negative things out of the file cabinet, wad them up, and throw them into the pile. Isn't that awesome? You have to go to the pile, pull the things that are important out of that pile, bring them up here and put them right in the front, which are the successes. So you can have everything in the proper place before you get ready to transition into your new year or your new season. That's clearing. You want to get clear. You want to make sure that you're clear on where the events are filed from the prior season of your life before you enter into the new season. You want to make sure you're clear that you've got the things right here in front that will give you the proof of why you can do what it is you want to do in this next season or this next year of your life. And see, that's what he was telling me. He goes, Keith, back to my mentor, what he was sharing, he goes, Keith, what I do at the end of every single project I'm involved with, because he was talking about like businesses or ideas that he's worked on. Keith, before I'd go on to a new idea or a new venture or a new business, I would clear and I would cut. I haven't got the cutting part, but this was the clearing part. He goes, I would go back, and rather than blowing up all this emotion around why it didn't work out or why it didn't look how I think it should do or why it failed, I'd say, you know what? I'm going to go make a list of things I did really great. You know, I tried this. I did something that most other people don't do. I risked. I stretched. I faced rejection. I got over my own fear. And I made all the emotion attached to those things about why I'm such a great person and why I'm such a great business person. And then all the other negative things, I downplayed them. And then I made sure before I did anything new, I wanted to put myself into a complete place of health to the best of my ability so I could bring all my creativity, all my passion, all my greatness to the next new thing I'd be working on. How powerful is that? And this guy had so many stories about so many things he had tried. It blew my mind. But you know why he was able to do it so often and so quickly? The same reason why Thomas Edison was able to try the light bulb 10,000 different ways without it ever working, and he never gave up. Because he cleared himself on every single effort. You know what? I just successfully found out how a light bulb did not work. Same thing my mentor was telling me. He goes, Keith, I successfully found out how that idea or that opportunity would not work, and here's everything I learned from it, and here's why I'm so proud of what I did create and that effort. And I'm taking that with me to the next thing, and that moved me that much forward. Now, understanding it this way may make a lot more sense to you when somebody says, hey, fail forward. Fail forward, because failing, this is an opportunity to move yourself forward all the wiser. That's how I look at it. That's why I can go into new weeks, new months, new opportunities, new ventures, and I have all myself to bring into the next season of my life. So that's how you clear. You want to make sure you have the right things on the right list, and you have the right emotion attached to the right things, so the right things will be in the right file, right here by the front door for your doorkeeper, for your warehouse, and the things that won't serve you way in the other place that you can't go and find. You want to know why? Because when you're looking for proof on why you can't do something, if that's what you're trying to find, you're not going to go dig through that whole pile and try to find the proof. You're going to settle for what is true for you right here by the front door. So make sure you got the right things right here by the front door. That's the clearing part. So get clear on this year. Bring some clarity to everything that took place this year. Make the list. Reassociate the emotion. Look for what worked, what hasn't worked. And put yourself in a place of, you know what? This year was way better than I thought it was. I'm way greater than I thought it was. I accomplished a lot more than I ever thought I was going to accomplish this year. And it wasn't as bad as I thought. Because, see, our subconscious defaults to the negative. We don't want to just get stuck there. We want to clear that off and build our momentum and our confidence for the next season of our life. Okay, that's the clearing part. That's how you clear. Get your warehouse in order. Does that make sense? Awesome. Now, once you do that, once you've got everything you know you're taking here, this is the awesome part. So now you've got your filing cabinet in place. You're clear. Everything's clear. There's no confusion in your mind about what took place this year. You're at peace with it. You're clear on it. You're complete on it. I don't mean complete like finish. I mean you have closure. You're ready to move forward. Because here's what most people don't do. They move forward and they bring everything with them. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to do something different. So you've got everything right here in the file cabinet that you want now. You're clear. And guess what you're going to do now? You're probably saying cut. Exactly. What are you going to cut? You're going to cut that half of the warehouse off, and it's going to fall off the cliff, so to speak. You're going to cut yourself. You're going to cut all those stories, all the negativity that didn't work. You're going to cut it. You're going to sever it from who you are, leave it behind, so when you step into the new season, those things are not with you. You're clear, and you've cut the things that you don't want to bring with you. The number one reason why so many years of somebody's lives that you may know very well look so similar is because we never cut the things we didn't want to bring with us before we entered into the new season. We may have had different thoughts for the new season, but man, if we didn't clear and cut the things that we didn't want to bring with us away, we're bringing them all with us, and it's no wonder why we can't produce anything different than we haven't produced the year before. Does that make sense? We've got to get rid of those things. We've got to get rid of those stories. We've got to cut from them. Clear and cut. You know, it reminds me of the story of the little traveler. This little traveler had such a big backpack. And this backpack was full of rocks that he would put in it. And those rocks represented the negative things in his life or the failures that he defined as failures in his life. Every time something didn't turn out how he thought it, he put a rock in that backpack. And you can imagine how that little traveler felt as he traveled everywhere he wanted to go with that backpack full of rocks. I mean, think about it. If you had a backpack full of rocks, how would that make you feel? You're going to be weighted down. See, some people aren't ever even aware of this. Some people have never been taught clearing and cutting. And they go right into the new season with that same backpack on. And they can't figure out why they can't move any faster, why they can't stand any taller, why their creativity is limited, because they got all those rocks in their backpack. So what I want you to do is take off the backpack. You know, it's so funny. They make these backpacks today so structurally sound so you can carry all this weight. You know, they got clips here, clips here. My kid's backpack for school cracks up. It has all these clips and all these extra things. I'm like, why? It's for the weight. You don't want a backpack that can hold a lot of weight. You just want to take the backpack off and you want to set it down and leave it behind before you transition into the new year. Take the backpack off. Take the rocks out. Whatever it is you want to, whatever analogy suits you. You want to cut from those things so they are no longer with you. So you do not bring those things into your new year with you. Because if you do, you're going to create a whole lot more of this year of what you created last year, whether it served you or it didn't. Let that stuff go. Take the backpack off. Don't be like that little traveler. Take the backpack off, leave it sit, and then step into your new season. Isn't that exciting? That's clearing and cutting. That's why I do it every December. That's why I take it so seriously. I spend weeks every December. I use all 5 areas of my true abundance. I look at areas in my life, in my business, in my faith, in my marriage, and I do what I just taught you. I actually do it over and over and over again in all the different areas of my life, all the different areas I think I can come up with. That's why I use the entire month of December. This year I'm using 3.5 weeks, all the way through the first week of January, because I love it. I'm telling you, it's so addicting. That's why I dedicate it. Most those of you that have known me for a while, that's why you were asking. You'll know I've already dedicated. I'm teaching this training, clearing and cutting, every December for the rest of my life. Plain and simple. That's how valuable it is. I want to help you finish out this season of your life more effectively than you've ever finished out any other season of your life, and that will tee you up to do more the next season than you've probably ever done before. Isn't that exciting to know as you transition into this new year? Now, I want to remind you of this as well. I do this in December as well, but I also do it on a weekly, monthly. You know what? I even do this on a daily basis. I do a small little thing every night before I fall asleep, 5 minutes. It's what I do to seal the envelope of my day. I clear and I cut every single day of the little things, so I don't carry anything over to the next day. You know, that old saying, you know, never go to bed angry, never go to bed upset, that kind of thing, or whatever it may be, or discouraged. I clear and cut every day. What worked, what didn't work. I put it in my envelope, I seal the envelope, and I cut it, and I leave it behind, so the next morning when I wake up, I'm fresh, and I'm ready to go and be great in my day. I'm ready to be great for my wife, I'm ready to be great for my kids, I'm ready to be great for you here in the Mentorfish community. I'm ready to be great for whatever God's called me to do that day. Isn't that exciting to know? You can do it anytime. Any day could be the first day of your new year. I teach in December because most people are anchored to the calendar year, which is wonderful. But remember, you can use this training on any day, any week, any month, or any year. You can use it for seasons of transition from one business opportunity to the next, or from one idea to the next idea. You can do it and use it however you see most valuable. But I'm going to tell you, when you get clearing and cutting and how powerful it is, you'll be so much freer because you'll be so much clearer and so much lighter because you're not going to be carrying all that weight. Clear and cut every opportunity you have. So that's this month's keynote. That's December for you. I trust that you enjoy that. Finish out the year strong. Take the time, whether it's a day, a weekend, a couple hours, whatever it is for you. Take the time and clear and cut. I can promise you it will position you for a year and for the next season in a way you've never been positioned before. How great is that? I think it's awesome. All right, welcome back. You probably have a much clearer understanding now, no pun intended, on why that training is so vital, especially for this time of year. But as I mentioned, it can really be used any time of the year, but absolutely use it now. I mentioned, who I learned that from, and many of you benefited from that keynote just last month because we had Mr. Bill Bartman here in Mentorfish for our November keynote, which, by the way, if you missed it, if you missed our November keynote, our final special guest of the year, you want to go back right now to Mentorfish in the archives and check it out. You do not want to miss that keynote from him. So this is one of those valuable lessons. So implement it into your life. And I can promise you, you really can make your year look different next year if you choose to. But go into it cleared and cutting, and everything will seem to be different for you. So I'm excited for you. I want to thank you for being here tonight. And by the way, if you created value in this training tonight, this is just a small taste of what we do here at mentorfish.com. So if you're not a member, or you know somebody who you think would create value being a member, go to mentorfish.com. Check out what we're all about. We are the most affordable resource for leadership and professional development training anywhere on the face of the planet right now. $9.90 a month. Let me ask you this. Do you think this training, the one you just got done listening to, do you think that's worth $9.90? I would say absolutely it was. We do one of these every month, plus all the other things that we will do. And you can find out about all that on mentorfish.com. And you can even get sample trainings and free content there as well. So check us out. And you want to continue on with us? Join here between now and the end of the year and do 2014 with us. I would love to serve you. It would absolutely be an honor for me to walk out 2014 with you. So check it out, and I look forward to serving you. You all have a wonderful holiday season. Our next keynote will be in the new year. God bless you.